Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera Dent, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of my Dental A Team family. I seriously love doing this podcast. I thought I was going to hate it, and I love it. I love it so much because I get to connect with you. I get to hear how this podcast is helping you and your practice be better. So if you have loved this podcast and you are willing to share, I would greatly appreciate if you'll share with your friends, if you'll leave us a review, if you'll give us 5 stars, anything you can do. Just like you guys grow your practices, we're trying to grow this podcast to positively impact the world of dental. This is how we get to grow our Dental A Team family. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental A Team podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
2 perspectives, 1 mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera, and I've got 10 minutes before my next coaching call. So, of course, let's do a podcast. Let's come up with something that really is just going to drive you guys forward. So today's topic is that of having accountability and delegation. Let's do it in 10 minutes. You guys ready for that? So with accountability and delegation, I get asked this all the time. Kiera, how do I keep people accountable? How do I keep people accountable? How do I do this? What I found is that with accountability and delegation, these things only work if they're a must. Meaning not a should, I should keep them accountable. I should check in on their case acceptance. I should check in on their reappointment percentages. I should check in on their hygiene production. If it's a should, you're not going to do it. I should go to bed earlier. I shouldn't eat ice cream at a certain time of day. I should do this. I shouldn't do that. Shoulds don't get done and they don't move our lives forward. Musts happen. So for example, I was in an office and I had a doctor and she told me, Kiera, I used to never work out. She's like, now I work out every single day. And I was like, well, why do you work out every single day? Why didn't you do it before? Like, what changed? And she said, started having a lot of back pain, a lot of neck pain, and my hands started to go tingly. I have to work out to keep my job. Do you see how that shifted from a I should work out to an I must work out? I must work out. Otherwise, I won't have a job. Like I will end my career earlier. So I will be working out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's how accountability and delegation need to be viewed in your practice. Is it a must? Do these things. Is it a must? Does your team know that they must submit their KPI to you every Friday? Period. It's not like I'm going to threaten you or I'm going to reward you. It's a standard. That is a standard of excellence. That is their job. Does your team know this? Do they honor that? And is that set there? Have you set the precedence that these things get done? And when they're not done, they're followed up on. So that way your team knows these are absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts. They happen. I found that with accountability, another piece to it is that sometimes we make it too complicated. So I want you to challenge yourself. Look at your checklist. Look at the things you're having them do. Is it serving the purpose that you made it for? Or have we over time complicated it thinking, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. For example, I used to send out for all my team, I would send them like KPI. I wanted this filled out. And then I was like, oh, shoot, they need to update Monday.com. We use Monday.com to keep track of all of our clients. So like send another email. You guys need to fill out your Monday.com. So now they've got a KPI. They've got a Monday.com. Then I had another one that was like, oh, and don't forget, you need to update your calls on Bria. Okay, great. That's 3 emails. And I was like, oh, shoot, don't forget, like I made another checklist. So don't forget that you need to fill out this form. So by the end of it, every week, these people were getting 4 different emails to remind them of all these things that were quote unquote important. When everything's important, you got it. Nothing's important. And so I realized, hey, I have made this complicated. I originally did this as a reminder for them, but in doing so, I made it so complicated for them that they couldn't actually remember what I wanted them to remember. So I made it simpler. They had one form. I put the things I wanted them to check off on that one form. They didn't get 4 emails. They got 1 email. Everything was on there. I had to clean up and simplify my processes. I had to go back to figuring out what is the best way to do this and how can I simplify it. One thing in my company that we're always doing, I call it innovation. We're looking always of how we can innovate. Accountability it can be so simple. And a lot of times I think the reason people don't stay accountable is because it's become too complicated. And so they don't really know what they need to be accountable to. They might remember 7 of the 35 things to be accountable to. And you're like, why aren't you accountable to this? It's because we've overcomplicated the system and because it's not a must. The reality is if they don't do their chart notes at the end of the day and you're not checking in on it, nothing's going to happen. They're not going to be asked about those chart notes. So they'll remember the things that they can, but they're not going to remember everything. So I'm going to challenge all of you guys to go look at your checklist. Go look at the things you're having people be accountable to. 1, break it down. What things do you really want them accountable to? Do they have to be accountable to every single thing? Probably not. I would venture to say that you might have them over accountable, meaning they're under accountable because we've complicated the system for them. So review those. Are you like me where you've got 4 checklists? And could you simplify that down to make one that's very easy for them to digest that focuses on the highest points that will move it forward? Also, are you having them super, super high-end accountable to things that really don't move it forward? Meaning, we're looking and we're tracking like hygiene production and we want to make sure they've got their sealants and their fluoride and all these things. Is the reality that we just want their production up? And these are ways that they could get there, but we don't need to track it. I don't know. It's just I'm posing a question for you to think about. Could you maybe fine-tune and figure out a better way? Could it be that their job is to hit 3.3 times their pay 80% of the days worked? So then if they're not hitting it, they've got to come up with ways to do sealants and fluoride and FMXs and all those other things. Are we possibly tracking too simply or too complexly? What's really going to move the ball forward for you guys? Accountability does not have to be hard. It has to be a must, an absolute must, something they must get done, and it needs to be simple. That's really the bottom line. And then I think getting your team to own it, to where ask them, do you know what it is? Do you know what you need to be accountable for? Ask them to help you. What have I made too complicated? How can we simplify this? Team members, you guys listen to this podcast. What has your team done that's too complicated that you can't follow? Are you so accountable that you're actually not accountable? Have we over-accountabilized? Is that a word? Over-accountabilized you guys to where you're not accountable or you don't even know what the most important things are? Have we made it to where we really should simplify it down for you guys so that way you know exactly what to be accountable for? I would challenge all of you, look at your systems this week. What do you have in there? How are we too accountable to where we're actually not accountable? Remember, when everything's important, nothing's important. So pick maybe 3 things that they're accountable for every week. Could those 3 things, can you combine some of those end of day checklist items into certain things? Do we have so many checklists that we're over checklists? I will tell you, I've seen offices that are so over accountable that their team's actually not accountable because they have too many systems, too many checklists, too many things that they can't even keep them all straight. Remember, you guys, I'm going to say it over and over and over. It's like my mantra right now. Complexity is the enemy of execution. How can you simplify and innovate your processes for accountability right now to make it to where you're actually holding people accountable? So that's my challenge for you guys. Go check out your accountability and your delegation, because once you hold people accountable and you have it really dialed in, you can start to delegate onto their accountability list. If you don't have that accountability piece in place where there's a good follow-up, it's very hard to delegate. And I found that when I can help teams become very accountable for small things, it becomes much easier for us to delegate bigger things, because I know they're going to be accountable on the small things. I know they're going to stay accountable with me. And when I know that on the small things, I can then start to delegate big projects because they will respond back to me. That's what's going to happen. So go check your accountability. Make sure it's doing what it was made to do and you haven't just added to it when you should have simplified it down. Check to see, where am I too complicated? Where have I overdone it? Where have I underdone it? And make it so it's so simple. Your team should be able to know exactly, and it should be so simple that they're like, yep, this is my KPI. These are the things I'm responsible for daily, weekly, monthly. They should know that forward and backward. And if they don't, I would say we might have missed the mark. We might have made it too complicated. Revamp it, make it more simple. That way your team will execute. All right, guys, go have the best day. Get your teams to be accountable, to delegate. You yourselves, team members, look to see. This is a challenge. This isn't just for leaders. This is for dental assistants, hygienists, office managers, billers, schedulers, I don't care who you are, what position. This applies to you and your daily life. Look to see where we have missed the mark, and you come up with a way to simplify it so it actually is getting the results we're looking for. All right, guys, go make it a great day. And as always, thank you for joining us, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental 18 Podcast.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental 18 Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.